I've always thought that my life hasn't turned out so badly. At 67, I have a roof over my head, some savings, and relative health. A lot of people my age in Pomona can't boast those things. But when it comes to family, it's more complicated. The morning began as usual. I sipped coffee on the tiny veranda of my house, watching my neighbor's cat Peaches hunt butterflies in my petunias. The house was old, battered by life, like myself, cracks in the walls, creaky floorboards. We'd aged together since my husband Howard had died. "Good morning, Edith." My neighbor Verna called out to me as she went out to get the mail. "How's your back today?" "The usual," I said. "Thanks for asking." Verna is one of the few people still interested in my ailments. My son Reed used to be that person, but that was before Olivia came into his life, before I became the problem. I walked through the house, where my gaze fell habitually on the pictures on the mantel. Reed as a kid with the bike Howard and I had gotten him for his 10th birthday. Reed in his senior year of high school. Reed with me and Howard on a fishing trip. And then there's Reed and Olivia at the wedding. My daughter-in-law was beautiful, with a perfect smile and bright blue eyes in which I unfortunately discerned a cold calculation too late. The last picture is of my grandson Noah, the only ray of light left in my life, a 5-year-old boy with freckles, so much like his father as a child. I ran my finger along the glass of the frame. 2 weeks had passed since I'd last seen him. It wasn't that I didn't get a chance to see my grandson more often. After all, Reed and his family lived only 20 minutes away. But Olivia, she did everything she could to keep that from happening. I can still remember the day Reed brought her over to meet her. She was the epitome of politeness and charm, complimenting my blueberry pie, asking about old photos. Howard whispered to me, "Something's not right here." My late husband always had good intuition. I dismissed his suspicions as just paternal jealousy. How wrong I was. After the wedding, the mask fell almost instantly. To Olivia, I was just an obstacle, a nuisance in the way of the perfect family life she'd planned for herself and Reed. I'd seen the way she crinkled her nose when Reed offered to come over to my place, the way she rolled her eyes when I called, how she always found reasons to cancel our appointments. "Noah has a fever." We already promised to visit my parents. We have other plans this weekend. The cashier at the appliance store, who I'd worked for 30 years, didn't fit into the image of the perfect family she'd built. Her own parents, a successful dentist and former school teacher, were far more suitable grandparents for her son. I went into the kitchen and did the usual chores. I washed the few dishes, wiped down the countertop. My hands automatically performed the familiar motions while my thoughts wandered somewhere far away. The phone rang, breaking the silence of the house. "Mom, hi?" Reed's voice sounded a little strained. I immediately sensed something was wrong. "Hello, son. What's wrong?" "What makes you think something's wrong?" There was a protective note in his voice. "A mother's intuition," I smiled. "You always sound like that when you're uncomfortable asking for something, or when you broke my favorite vase trying to play baseball in the living room." Reed laughed lightly, but the laughter quickly died down. "Next Saturday is Noah's birthday. He's turning 5 years old." I pressed the phone closer to my ear. "Yeah, I remember. I already have a present ready for him. In fact, I started preparing for his birthday a month ago. I bought the toy doctor's kit Noah had talked about the last time I saw him. The boy has been fascinated with medicine ever since he went into the hospital with pneumonia last year. I spent almost my entire pension in a month, but it was worth it." "Well," Reed hesitated. "The thing is, Olivia's planning a little party, just family and a couple of Noah's friends from preschool." I felt my heart clench. I already knew where he was going with this. "Olivia thinks you'll be uncomfortable. You know, lots of noise, kids." "Reed," I interrupted him, "your son is turning 5. I'm his grandmother. Of course I want to be there. There was silence. I could hear his breathing on the other end of the line. I know, Mom. And I told Olivia the same thing. It was unexpected. Reed rarely contradicted his wife. From the moment they'd met, she'd had a strange power over him. My strong, intelligent son had become soft and malleable around her, like clay in the hands of a sculptor. Howard often spoke of it before he died. "She'll break him, Edith. You've got to do something," he would say when the cancer was almost gone and the morphine was clouding his judgment. But what could I do? Reed was a grown man. He'd made his choice, even if those choices broke my heart. "So, am I invited?" I asked cautiously. "Yes," Reed said firmly. "The party starts at 2:00. I insisted that you come." I felt a rush of gratitude for my son, but I felt anxious at the same time. If Reed insisted, then Olivia was against it, and that didn't bode well. "Thank you, son. I'll definitely be there." "But, Mom," there's that uncertainty in his voice again. "Olivia's really nervous about this party. You know how she is. Everything has to be perfect. So, I'll be on my best behavior," I assured him with a touch of bitterness. "I won't tell old family stories, mention your father, or comment on her new interior." Reed sighed. "Mom, you know that's not what I meant." "I know, son. I'm sorry. I just want to see Noah. I miss him." "He misses you too. He asks about you a lot." Those words warmed my heart. Despite Olivia's best efforts, the bond between me and my grandson was alive. "I'll be there," I promised. "And Reed, thank you for insisting." After the call, I sat back in my chair, trying to deal with the storm of emotions. The joy of seeing my grandson was mixed with the anxiety of the inevitable confrontation with Olivia. Our relationship had deteriorated every year, and now we could barely be in the same room together. It started with little things. She criticized my house, too old-fashioned. My clothes, can't you dress more modern? My cooking, we're trying to be healthy, Edith. When Noah was born, things got worse. Olivia thought I was spoiling him too much, not following her parenting system, not holding the baby properly. I remember one day she snatched 2-year-old Noah out of my arms, claiming I might drop him. I, who had raised my own son without a single serious injury, suddenly found myself unable to hold a child. I cried all the way home that day. The problem worsened after Howard died 3 years ago. Lung cancer took him quickly, leaving me alone in a house that was suddenly too big and empty. Reed visited me often in those days, sometimes with Noah. Olivia almost never came, always finding reasons to stay home. And then there was that conversation. Reed came alone, sat across from me at the kitchen table, and started talking about the future, about finances, about how hard it would be for me to keep the house alone. He talked about how he and Olivia could help, but they needed financial stability in return. I signed the papers that day, signing the house over to him. The lawyer, an elderly friend of Howard's, insisted on including a clause for my lifetime residency. "Just in case," he said at the time. I didn't object. After all, Reed was my only son, my flesh and blood. Who else was I supposed to leave the house to? After that, Reed's visits became less frequent. Olivia was even more insistent on limiting my contact with Noah. Something had changed, as if I'd fulfilled my function and was no longer needed. I shook my head, coming back to the present. There was no point in wallowing in bitter memories. What mattered now was that I would see my grandson on his birthday. That's cause for rejoicing. Rising from my chair, I headed for the small room that served as a pantry. There, on the top shelf, was hidden a box with a gift for Noah. I pulled it out and ran my hand over the brightly colored packaging with pictures of superheroes. Noah loved stories about people saving others. Maybe this birthday would be a turning point. Maybe Olivia will finally realize that I'm not a threat to their family, that I'm just an older woman who wants to be a part of her grandchild's life. I put the box back where it belonged and decided to call my old friend Patricia. She worked at the bank, and we hadn't seen each other in weeks. Patricia, it's Edith. You won't believe this. I've been invited to Noah's birthday party. Had the Ice Queen thawed out? Laughed Patricia, who was familiar with the situation. I don't think so, Reed insisted. Well, that's something. Maybe he's finally starting to show some character. I don't know, I sighed. But I'm afraid Olivia's going to do something. You know how she feels about me. Don't think about it, Edith. Just enjoy your time with your grandson. By the way, I can drop you there if you like. I'm going that way on Saturday anyway. I gratefully accepted her offer. Lately, driving was getting harder for me. My eyesight wasn't what it used to be. I spent the evening going through old photo albums. Pictures of Reed as a child always made me smile. What an open and loving child he was. What happened to that boy who used to bring me wildflowers and homemade cards just for no reason at all? Who hugged me so tightly it took my breath away? Sometimes I see glimpses of that child in his eyes, especially when he looks at his son. But then Olivia shows up, and his gaze changes, becoming wary and unsure. I closed the album and put it back on the shelf. It's no good diving into the past. I need to look forward to my upcoming birthday, to seeing my grandson, to reconnecting with my family a little. That night, I couldn't sleep for a long time, imagining various scenarios for the upcoming celebration. Some were joyful Noah excitedly unwrapping my gift, Olivia finally recognizing me as part of the family. Others, not so pleasant. I knew my sister-in-law well enough to realize she wasn't happy about my presence at this celebration, and she'd probably find a way to make me feel that way. But for Noah's sake, I was willing to endure any trouble. After all, isn't that what grandmothers do? I closed my eyes, determined to focus on positive thoughts. No matter what happened on Saturday, I would be ready. Saturday morning was clear and warm, perfect weather for a children's party. I woke up earlier than usual, excited about my upcoming meeting with my grandson. The first thing I did was check the present. The doctor's kit was in a bright blue box with a silver bow, which I had tied myself, even though my fingers weren't as good as they used to be. There was plenty of time left, so I decided to complete the gift. The local stationery store sold special birthday cards that played a recorded message when opened. The thought of Noah being able to hear my voice whenever he wanted was heartwarming. Pomona came alive with Saturday morning. People were hurrying about their business, some to work, some to shop. A young couple walked a golden retriever in the park across the street from my house. Reed had wanted one once, but Howard had been against it. Too much fur. I regretted it now. Maybe if we'd gotten a dog, Reed's life would have turned out differently. The store greeted me with the cool air of the air conditioners and the melodious tinkling of the bell above the door. Good morning, Mrs. Forster. Lauren, the manager, smiled. She knew me as a regular customer who bought cards for every holiday. What are we looking for today? A musical card for my grandson. It's his birthday. How old is he? 5. Lauren took me to the card stand. This one with superheroes on it should be a boy's favorite. You can record up to 30 seconds of the message. I chose a card and wrote down a short message. My voice sounded tentative and a little shaky, but the sincerity of the sentiment made up for it. Happy birthday, my dear Noah. Grandma loves you very much and will always be there for you. I hope your 5th birthday is magical. Love you to the moon and back. After paying for my purchase, I walked out of the store and headed towards the bus stop. Patricia wasn't supposed to pick me up until after lunch, but I wanted to buy something else for the party. Sweet Dreams Bakery beckoned with the aroma of freshly baked goods. The owner, a ruddy woman named Gloria, was an old acquaintance of mine. "Edith, haven't seen you in a while." "Hello, Gloria. It's my grandson's birthday today. I'd like to get him something for his tea. Kids love chocolate cupcakes with caramel filling," she said with a wink. "What's his name? I can make a special package." "Noah," I said proudly. While Gloria wrapped the cupcakes in a box labeled, "Happy Birthday, Noah," I looked at the display case. Sweets had always been my weakness. Howard often joked that I was born with sugar instead of salt in my blood. "How's your son?" Gloria asked, tying the box with ribbon. "He's fine. He's working as a long-distance bus driver. I think he's on a trip right now." "And your daughter-in-law?" I hesitated to answer. "She's doing well." Gloria nodded understandingly. Word travels fast in a small town like Pomona. She must have heard about Olivia and I's complicated relationship. "Tell the birthday boy congratulations," she smiled, handing me a box of cupcakes. "And don't worry, Edith. Children always know who really loves them." I thanked her and walked out of the bakery, clutching the warm box to my chest. There was a small public garden nearby, and I sat down on a bench to collect my thoughts. My attention was caught by a young mother and a little boy. They were feeding the pigeons, laughing as the birds greedily grabbed the breadcrumbs. The boy was about the same age as Noah. When the last crumbs were gone, he turned to his mother with such an open, trusting gaze that my heart snapped. How I missed moments like that with my own grandson. Olivia had methodically pushed me out of his life, and each year it was getting harder and harder to keep us connected. I used to be able to count on short phone conversations, but in the last few months, those had become rare. I remembered signing the deed to Reed's house 3 years ago, shortly after Howard's death. It had been a difficult decision to make because the house held so many memories. Howard and I had lived here for almost 40 years. It's where Reed was born and raised. It was where I'd learned I was going to be a grandmother, and where Howard had spent his last days. Reed insisted it was best for everyone. "You won't be able to support him on your own, Mom," he said. "You'll be relieved of your worries, and we'll get stability for our family." I didn't know then that stability for Olivia meant getting rid of me. The lawyer, an old friend of Howard's, insisted on including a clause about my lifetime residency rights. I remember Olivia's lips tightening when she heard that stipulation, but she didn't dare object. At the time, I still hoped that our relationship would improve over time, that she would see me not as a rival, but as an ally in Noah's upbringing. The bus took me home, and I spent the rest of the morning getting ready for the party. I showered, styled my graying hair, and put on my best dress, the dark blue small floral print Reed had given me last Christmas. Howard always said blue made my eyes look brighter. The doorbell rang at 1 o'clock sharp. Patricia was punctual as usual. "You look great," she said as I got into her old Ford. "Thanks for the ride." "You're welcome. I'm just passing through anyway. How you feeling?" I shrugged. "Worried. I'm afraid Olivia won't be happy I'm here." "I don't care about Olivia." Patricia snorted, pulling into the driveway. "You're going to your grandson's birthday party. You have every right to be." The drive to Reed and Olivia's house took about 20 minutes. On the way, we were silent, each immersed in our own thoughts. Patricia knew the whole story of my relationship with my sister-in-law, and she didn't need any further explanation. When the car stopped in front of a small 2-story house in the suburbs, my heart raced. The windows were decorated with colorful balloons, and a brightly colored "Happy Birthday" sign hung on the door. "Do you want me to wait for you?" Patricia asked, looking at me with concern. "No need. I'll call a cab when I get home." "Are you sure?" "Positive. Thank you." Patricia nodded reluctantly. "Call me tonight and let me know how it went." I got out of the car, clutching my gifts, the box of doctor's kits, a musical card, and cupcakes from Gloria. I took a deep breath and headed for the door. Several cars were parked in the driveway. The festivities seemed to be in full swing. I heard children's laughter and the sound of music coming from the house. That gave me confidence. Walking to the door, I pressed the bell with determination. It took a few seconds before the door opened. Olivia stood on the threshold. Her perfectly styled blonde hair and flawless makeup contrasted with the cold expression on her face when she saw me. "Edith?" She looked surprised, but I knew it was an act. "Hello, Olivia. I came to congratulate Noah." Her gaze slid down to my gift-giving hands. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Reed shouldn't have invited you." I felt the blood rush to my face. Misunderstanding? My grandson is celebrating his birthday. Of course I'm here. Olivia crossed her arms over her chest. Her blue eyes were as cold as the winter sky. "We're having a close family celebration." "I am family," I said firmly. Noah's voice came from inside the house. "Mom, who's there?" Olivia didn't answer, continuing to block my way. I looked over her shoulder and saw a group of children playing in the living room. Among them was Noah, my little Noah, wearing a holiday hat and a superhero painted on his cheek. "Grandma," he exclaimed when he spotted me and rushed to the door. "Grandma's here." Olivia's face contorted with annoyance. She turned to her son. "Noah, go back to your guests. Grandma's just leaving." "But I want her to stay." The boy frowned. "It's not possible. Grandma has other plans." I stepped forward. "I don't have other plans, Noah. I came to see you for your birthday." Olivia turned to me sharply, her eyes sparkling. "I told her you were leaving." "Why?" Noah asked, perplexed. "Because..." Olivia hesitated, searching for a reason. "Where's Reed?" I asked. "I want to talk to him." "Reed's not here. He's on a trip," Olivia said. "And if he were here, he'd agree with me." I wasn't sure about that, but that wasn't what was important right now. Noah stood beside his mother, his little face a look of confusion and distress. "I brought you a present, Noah," I said, holding out the box. "Happy birthday, dear." The boy reached for the gift, but Olivia intercepted his hand. "Noah, I told you to go back to your guests." "Now." Her tone was uncomplaining. Noah gave me a frustrated look and wandered reluctantly back into the living room. My heart ached at the sight of his slumped shoulders. Olivia turned to me. She dropped her ostentatious politeness now that her son couldn't hear us. "What do you want, Edith? Money? Attention? Pity?" "I need to be a part of my grandson's life," I replied, trying to speak calmly. "It's normal and natural." Olivia hummed. "It's normal and natural to respect boundaries, but you don't understand that. Showing up uninvited, manipulating Reed." "Uninvited? Reed called me and invited me to the party." "And that was a mistake he'd already told me about." She lied. I felt anger building inside. All these years I'd tried to be polite, accommodating, tolerant. I'd tried to please Olivia, knowing how important her relationship with Reed was. But how many times can I do this? "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "I'm not leaving without congratulating my grandson. I wouldn't leave without giving him the gift I'd chosen so lovingly." Olivia's face contorted. "Here's the thing, Edith. I've put up with you long enough. I've put up with your calls, your surprise visits, your outdated views on parenting. But I've had enough. Noah is my son, and I decide who is in his life." "He's my grandson, too," I objected. "I have rights." "Rights?" Olivia laughed, but her laugh was devoid of mirth. "What rights do you have, Edith? You're a nobody, a pensioner who can barely make ends meet. You don't even have a house of your own. You're living in a house that belongs to Reed and me." I shuddered like I'd been hit. The fact that my own son had told her the details of our arrangement hurt more than I'd expected. "I have the right of occupancy for life," I reminded her. Yes, yes, the right of occupancy, she mocked. You know what that says? That you're homeless, parasitic on your own son. I'm speechless. Never, not even in our most intense conversations, had Olivia allowed herself such insults. Or maybe she just hadn't said them to my face. Noah appeared in the hallway